The electric vehicle market may have a new champion. China's BYD overtook Tesla on sales over the latest quarter. The Warren Buffett.
In 2011, Elon Musk laughed off BYD. Today, they've overtaken Tesla in global EV sales and crossed $100 billion in revenue, dominating China and expanding fast across the world. The tables have turned, and it begs the question, has Elon finally met a rival he can't beat? Back in the early 2000s, if you'd asked someone about BYD, most people outside China would have scratched their heads. Even inside China, it wasn't known as a car maker. It was a battery company, just one of many trying to make a mark in the tech-driven world. But that focus on batteries, especially lithium-ion ones, would turn out to be a major advantage. While Tesla was still a Silicon Valley dream, BYD was quietly mastering the art of energy storage. That gave them a huge head start when the electric vehicle, EV, wave began to rise.
Into a high-volume electric car maker. Production of the Tesla Model 3, a lower-priced sedan, began in July 2017. A lot of that has paid off. Sales grew.
BYD didn't jump straight into fully electric cars. First, they explored hybrids, plug-in models that combined a traditional engine with electric power. It was a practical move, especially in China, where the infrastructure for full EVs wasn't ready yet. Slowly but surely, they started building cars that ordinary people could actually afford. No flashy marketing, no celebrity CEOs, just accessible vehicles that got the job done. The early models weren't the prettiest or the fastest, but they were reliable, and that counted for a lot. When Elon Musk was asked about BYD in a 2011 interview with Bloomberg, he actually laughed. Literally. He didn't think much of their cars or their future. That clip aged poorly, because while Musk was focused on building a premium EV empire, BYD was playing a different game entirely. They weren't aiming for luxury. They were aiming for volume, practicality, and national dominance. And they were getting serious help doing it.
For decades, the electric vehicle race was dominated by flashy specs, billionaire CEOs, and promises of a futuristic revolution.
The Chinese government saw electric vehicles as a way to leapfrog traditional automakers. They threw their support behind local EV manufacturers, and BYD was one of the biggest beneficiaries. Subsidies, favorable regulations, access to raw materials, it was all part of the plan. And BYD didn't waste the opportunity. They expanded fast, but not just with cars.
From fossil fuels to solar and electric power. The plan didn't mention autonomy or robots. The idea was simple: make and sell expensive EVs.
They started building electric buses, delivery vans, even monorail systems. While Tesla focused on high-end sedans and self-driving software, BYD went wide, not just deep. Over time, BYD became the top-selling EV brand in China. That's no small feat considering China is the largest EV market in the world. And they didn't get there by making the best-looking cars or the fastest ones. They did it by understanding the market, keeping prices low, and making vehicles that worked for everyday people. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. And it turned them into a real threat to Tesla, especially as they began moving into international markets with the same quiet aggression.
While Elon Musk slashes prices to stay competitive, BYD's EVs, like the $15,000 Seagull, are already cheaper than gas cars. And their secret?
If you've been paying attention to the EV market, it's hard to ignore how fast BYD is expanding. What started as a stronghold in China has turned into a global takeover, and they're doing it with speed that's honestly kind of shocking. Countries like Germany, Brazil, Thailand, and even places like the UK and Norway, markets where Tesla once had the upper hand, are seeing a growing number of BYD models on the roads. It's not just talk anymore. BYD is showing up everywhere, from flashy car shows in Europe to major public transport deals in South America.
The question isn't if BYD will dethrone Tesla, but when. And for the rest of the auto industry, the clock just ran out.
One of the biggest reasons BYD is able to move this fast is because of how affordable their cars are. They're not trying to compete with Tesla by making something more luxurious or high-tech. Instead, they focus on what most people actually want: a car that works, looks decent, and doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And they can pump these vehicles out quickly, thanks to crazy efficient production cycles. Tesla might have style, But BYD has scale, and scale is winning in a lot of these regions. A huge part of that efficiency comes from the fact that BYD doesn't rely on outside suppliers for most of the important stuff. They make their own batteries, chips, and software, which is a major advantage. When the rest of the world was dealing with supply chain chaos, BYD just kept rolling. It's like they built their own private highway while everyone else was stuck in traffic.
To other markets in South America where Tesla doesn't really have as much of a presence right now.
BYD is building up its presence in Europe. Last year, it sold 13,000 vehicles.
That control has helped them grow in both developing and developed markets. In countries where people are looking for budget-friendly EVs, BYD is the go-to. In places with stricter emission laws and green policies, they're attractive for public transport and city fleets. And while Tesla still has fans in China, BYD is creeping up fast, eating into their market share every quarter. It's a big reason why Elon Musk isn't as confident as he used to be.
Internal combustion vehicle production cut EV production costs down to the point where they were cheaper than gas cars and launched a driver assistance system for the mass market.
You can tell something's changed just by listening to how Elon Musk talks about BYD these days. There was a time when he laughed off any mention of them, like they weren't even in the same league, but that energy is gone. He's not joking anymore, because BYD has officially surpassed Tesla in global EV sales. Not only that, but in 2024, they crossed the $100 billion revenue mark, beating Tesla on the financial scoreboard for the first time since 2018. That kind of growth is hard to ignore, even for someone like Musk. What's even more interesting is how Musk is reacting. Instead of giving BYD credit, he's raising some serious accusations. He's saying they're benefiting from unfair government subsidies, which allow them to sell EVs at prices Tesla just can't compete with. He also claims they're manipulating the market by flooding it with ultra-cheap vehicles that undercut everyone else. In his words, BYD isn't winning because they're building better cars. They're winning because the rules are rigged.
And allowing rivals like BYD to surge ahead by slashing prices and capturing market share. Behind the scenes, factory robots malfunctioned.
It's a bold claim, and while there might be some truth to it, China does support its domestic companies heavily, it also feels like a defensive move. Investors have started to notice the shift. When BYD's numbers started making headlines, Tesla's stock dipped, and people started asking tough questions about whether Tesla could keep up in a price war. Even Tesla's recent price cuts feel like a reaction more than a strategy. For years, Musk was the disruptor, the one putting pressure on legacy automakers. Now, he's the one being disrupted, and it's clearly messing with his usual confidence. Whether he's right or not about BYD gaming the system, one thing is clear. This is no longer a one-man show. The competition is real, and it's coming fast.
To other markets in South America where Tesla doesn't really have as much of a presence right now.
BYD is building up its presence in Europe. Last year, it sold 13,000 vehicles.
If you know Elon Musk, you know he doesn't just sit back when someone challenges him. The rise of BYD has definitely rattled him, but instead of waving the white flag, he's swinging back with everything Tesla's got. One of the first moves he made was cutting prices across multiple Tesla models. The goal was to stay competitive in markets where BYD's affordability was becoming a huge advantage. But those price cuts came at a cost. Tesla's profit margins took a hit, and that worried a lot of investors. Still, Elon seemed willing to sacrifice short-term gains to keep Tesla in the game. At the same time, Tesla's factories have been working overtime, especially Giga Shanghai. That facility alone produces more cars annually than many entire car companies. And Tesla isn't stopping there. They're ramping up production in Germany, the US, and Mexico, trying to flood the market and keep up with BYD's breakneck pace.
Chinese EV makers are leaving everybody else in the dust.
They won before this announcement. And it's just adding more salt to the wound.
One of Tesla's boldest plays is fast-tracking its long-promised affordable EV, something that could really shake things up in markets where price matters more than luxury. The idea is to bring a sub-$25,000 model to life, which would directly compete with BYD's budget-friendly offerings. If Tesla can actually pull this off and still maintain quality, it could change the whole EV market again. But where Musk is really doubling down is in software and tech. Tesla's full self-driving, FSD, capabilities, though still being tested, are way ahead of what BYD offers. Then there's AI development and the introduction of the Tesla Optimus robot, which Musk claims will eventually play a key role in factories and even homes. Whether that's realistic or not, it keeps Tesla in the spotlight as a tech-first company, not just a car maker. And you can't ignore the brand power. In the US and many Western countries, Tesla has a loyal fan base that sees owning a Tesla as more than just owning a car. It's about being part of a movement.
Signs everywhere show just how brutal China's EV market has become. Companies have been fighting a price war since at least the beginning of 2023, reportedly sparked.
As impressive as BYD's rise has been, it doesn't mean they're untouchable. In fact, once you look past the headlines and sales numbers, you start to see some real cracks in their empire. For starters, vehicle quality has been a consistent complaint. Some drivers report issues with interior materials, clunky software, and performance quirks that you wouldn't expect from a company leading the EV market. In China, where consumers are more price sensitive, that might be overlooked. But in places like Europe and North America, those things matter a lot. Another issue is that BYD's brand appeal outside Asia isn't as strong. In China, they're seen as reliable and practical, but elsewhere, they're still trying to shake off the budget brand image. For buyers in the US or Germany, owning a BYD doesn't carry the same prestige as a Tesla or even a BMW EV. That's a hurdle that money alone can't fix. Building a brand people love takes time, and in the global auto industry, reputation counts. Then there's the elephant in the room, government support. A big part of BYD's success came from Chinese subsidies and policy advantages. That's not a bad thing in itself, but it does raise questions. What happens if the Chinese government pulls back support? Or if other countries slap tariffs or restrictions on Chinese-made EVs? We're already seeing rising tensions between China and Western nations over trade, and BYD could get caught in the crossfire. The race for global dominance in the EV market is only getting hotter. What we're watching right now isn't just a business rivalry. It's a full-blown arms race between superpowers. The United States, China, and Europe are all battling for control of the electric future, and Tesla and BYD are right at the center of it. Each region is setting new rules, throwing up trade barriers, offering massive subsidies, and fighting to protect their own champions. It's not just about who builds the best car, it's about who controls the next era of transportation.
Market yet. So selling consumer robots to me is like a pie in the sky bet. I'm an activist investor, and I still think
as this fight unfolds, trade wars and tariffs are already becoming a big deal. The US is tightening its grip on Chinese imports, and there's growing talk of slapping heavier tariffs on EVs from China, including BYD. Europe is also starting to push back, worried about being flooded with cheaper electric cars. These shifts in policy are changing the game fast, especially for BYD, which has been relying on aggressive pricing to win new markets. The rules are shifting, and both Tesla and BYD have to stay on their toes.
Just when the world thought BYD had played its best card, they unveiled a $5,000 flying car. Not a concept, not a billionaire's toy, a mass-market vehicle.
As the electric vehicle, EV, market continues to evolve, the traditional battlegrounds of North America, Europe, and China are becoming increasingly saturated. While these regions remain crucial, new, untapped markets are emerging on the global stage, with regions like India, Africa, and Latin America holding massive potential. These areas, characterized by rapidly growing populations and an urgent demand for affordable and efficient transportation, represent the next frontier in the EV industry. The race to dominate these markets is likely to shape the future of the automotive world for decades to come. India, in particular, has caught the attention of several major EV players. With a population nearing 1.4 billion people, the need for affordable, sustainable transportation has never been more urgent. The country's urban areas, such as Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, are grappling with increasing pollution, traffic congestion, and the challenges of providing reliable public transport to its citizens. This has opened the door for electric vehicles to provide a cleaner, more efficient alternative to traditional combustion engines. Companies like Tesla have shown interest in tapping into the Indian market, yet the competition is already fierce. China's BYD, the world's largest EV manufacturer, has established a strong presence in India, not only selling electric cars, but also buses and budget-friendly EVs designed to cater to the mass market. Tesla's brand, known for its high-end vehicles and cutting-edge technology, may find it challenging to match BYD's well-established foothold and affordable offerings in this region. Africa presents an even more complex, yet promising opportunity. The continent, home to over 1.3 billion people, is in the midst of an economic transformation, with growing middle-class populations in countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. Africa is poised to leapfrog traditional infrastructure, such as gasoline stations, in favor of new, more sustainable solutions, like electric vehicles. However, the challenges are equally significant. A lack of charging infrastructure, limited access to financing, and relatively low purchasing power among consumers mean that EV manufacturers must find innovative ways to address these obstacles. There's also the question of how to localize production to make EVs affordable for African consumers. A few companies have started to make inroads into this space, but much of the market remains underdeveloped. Whoever can find the right balance between cost-effectiveness and quality will have the upper hand. Similarly, Latin America is another region with untapped potential. With growing populations and urbanization rates, countries like Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina are seeing an increased demand for affordable transportation options. These markets are similar to India and Africa in that they are heavily price sensitive, meaning the key to success will lie in offering EVs at prices that align with local incomes. While many governments are offering incentives to push for green technology, there is still much work to be done in terms of creating the necessary charging infrastructure and ensuring access to financing for customers. As in India and Africa, regional players like BYD have an advantage in terms of affordability, but global competitors such as Tesla are starting to take note of the potential these markets hold. The growing awareness of environmental concerns in Latin American cities could also accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles, as local governments push for solutions to tackle air pollution and sustainability challenges. In all these regions, the EV market is not just about making cars for a specific city or country, it's about the broader picture, understanding how to serve an entire region that may have very different needs compared to the traditional, high-income urban centers like New York or Berlin. The focus is shifting from creating high-end premium electric vehicles to finding innovative ways to meet the transportation needs of people in emerging markets. In these regions, it's not just about luxury cars or fancy features. It's about building affordable, reliable transportation that can be integrated into the everyday lives of millions of people. The importance of these emerging markets cannot be overstated. These regions could very well be the deciding factor in who becomes the global leader in the EV industry. Tesla's approach has been focused on premium vehicles and establishing a stronghold in mature markets with a deep pool of affluent customers. However, as competition intensifies, particularly from BYD, which is adept at creating low-cost vehicles, the strategy may need to shift. For companies that want to emerge as leaders in the next decade, success in markets like India, Africa, and Latin America will be crucial. The companies that can adapt to the unique needs of these regions, offering affordable models, investing in local manufacturing, and building partnerships to address infrastructure challenges will likely come out on top. This shift in focus is not just about geography. It's also about the potential for partnerships and alliances within the EV world. At present, there's little indication that competitors like Tesla and BYD will collaborate anytime soon. Elon Musk in particular has often been critical of other automakers and competitors, making it seem unlikely that these companies will come together in any meaningful way. Musk's unfiltered criticisms and combative approach to business have created a sense of rivalry that doesn't lend itself to partnership. However, the business world has a strange way of forcing even the fiercest enemies to collaborate when the right conditions arise.
Today, we cannot compete with China. And I think the current administration has made it clear that electrics are not a priority, that we'll bide our time.
Supply chains are becoming increasingly complex, and the race to develop better battery technologies is heating up. In this environment, it's possible that companies may be forced to put aside their differences and work together. Battery development, for example, requires substantial investments in research and manufacturing capacity, resources that are not always available to every company. Some automakers may find it more cost-effective to share technology, collaborate on research, or jointly invest in battery production, rather than compete directly in areas where the financial burden is too high. This is already happening in other parts of the automotive industry, where manufacturers partner on electric and hybrid technology to share the cost burden. Additionally, the competition for market share in these emerging regions could push manufacturers to collaborate in ways that might have seemed unthinkable a few years ago. In a fast-growing market, companies are often forced to partner with local manufacturers, governments, or infrastructure companies to make their products viable. For example, to succeed in India, automakers may need to collaborate with local companies to scale up production and navigate the regulatory environment. Similarly, in Africa and Latin America, partnerships with local governments or energy companies could help address the lack of charging infrastructure and ensure that electric vehicles are accessible to all. The potential for partnerships or alliances in the EV world will become even more critical as the market matures and new technologies emerge. Competition will no longer just be about selling cars to wealthy consumers in developed markets. It will be about finding ways to serve the needs of consumers across the globe, from Mumbai to Lagos to Sao Paulo. The companies that can master the art of collaboration while still maintaining their competitive edge will be the ones that thrive in the coming years. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.